S-P-Y-R-O-O.
Yo, what the f***'s good? My name is Spyro. Today, we're gonna be learning how to make a reverse bass. That sounds like this. Okay, so the way we're gonna go through this today, I'm gonna turn off and we'll work backwards through this sound so you can see what I did and learn why I did that so you can do this for yourself. You feel me? Okay, first, so I started with the kick. Now this kick is from my brand new sample pack, the Spyro sample pack volume 1. That is out now, so go check the link in the description. Go cop that as soon as you're finished watching this video. Fat bitch. Okay, so after the kick, the next thing you need to do is put down a sub. So I always use my subs in audio for basses like these. Now the reason is, it's very important that your sub is in phase with your kick. If you look on the scope here, it will show you what your waveform of your kick and your sub looks like. So if we freeze that, you can see this is the kick here, and this second half is the sub here. So kick, and then the sub. And as you can see, if we zoom in, there's a continuous smooth line between the kick into the sub. Now, if we were to move the start of the sub, say to there, we can see now on the scope that there's a messy transition from the kick to the sub. We don't want that because that's making the speaker do a lot of extra in and out work. You want the speaker to be doing as little as possible. So we're gonna move that back to where it was. Calm. Okay, so now onto the bass. So the bass is made up of 2 layers. We're gonna go through them both now. So this is the main layer. So I'm gonna take everything off and we'll work backwards through this sound. So let's turn off the effects. So I started with the oscillator A. Super simple, it's just the basic default saw wave. I've turned the unison up to 4. I've turned the random down to 0 because this will ensure that every time the note plays, it will start from the same point in the waveform, making each note sound exactly the same. You don't want each note sounding slightly different. So I've got 2 LFOs set up here. They're both doing slightly different things. LFO 1 is doing the volume of oscillator A and the volume of oscillator B. And then LFO 1 is doing a few other fairly small modulations. So we'll turn on oscillator B. This is a waveform called Bots. It's from the Cymatics Jaws pack. You can use any gritty sounding waveform for these style of basses. So this one sounds like this. Again, LFO 2 is on the level parameter there, and LFO 1 is slightly modulating the asymmetrical plus modulator. All this is really doing is just changing the sound a little bit with it off. I felt it gave it that reverse bass tone a little bit more, but you know, you can play around with the various options here. So put them both together. So then I put on a filter. This is the MG-Low 12. It's mixed at 82% with a bit of a cutoff. Now, you see here the resonance is up quite high. That gives it that whoa, whoa, whoa kind of sound. So that started to make it sound a bit more like the reverse bass sound, which we're after. That's affecting both oscillator A and oscillator B. So we're getting there with the sound, but it needs to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more distorted, a lot more gritty. So I put on the distortion. I'm using the asymmetrical type of distortion here. And that's a super powerful kind of distortion, which really gives it that aggressive reverse bass kind of vibe. And then after that, we put on the compressor using the multiband. Just to really rip it out and make it even more aggressive and powerful. So after putting on that compressor, I felt there was quite a lot of hissy, nasty highs that I didn't really want. So I just did a simple EQ cut at about 11K. Just to tame that top end a little bit, you feel me? So one final thing for the main layer, we need to go to the global tab and make sure we set the unison width to 20. So this is the sound in stereo. Then we switch it to mono. Well, here we lose quite a lot of the sound when we switch it to mono. So if we set this to 20, when we come to listen to the bass in mono, we haven't lost as much of the sound. It's very important that you make your reverse basses mono compatible. So when you play them on a system that may be mono, they're still going to sound fat and full. You don't want to be losing any information when your tracks are played in mono. Okay, cool. So that's the main layer. Now we've got a second layer here. So that's just to add a bit more character to the reverse bass. Now basically this was based off my donk preset, which is in a previous video which I've done before on this channel, so you can check that out if you want to. So the basic of a donk is to get two sine type waveforms and frequency modulate one with the other. But instead of the donk, which would normally be like this, what I've done is move the LFO here to give it more of a reverse bass kind of groove. So yeah, you can check out the specifics of how I'll go about making a donk in the previous video. But we have a bit of EQ, Vengeance multiband compressor on the Dance Master 2 preset at 79%. That really makes the sound a lot more powerful. I describe this as bringing out the best qualities in the sound and making everything a lot fatter and a lot closer. A little bit more EQ, cutting out the low mids. A bit of redux in a wet and dry rack to give it some of that top end grittiness, and then the Oxford inflator at the end just to fatten it up and warm it up a little bit. So the two sounds together sound like, that's just the main bass on its own. Then with the donk layer, cool. So the processing on the channel, so because we've got a sub doing all the subs, so everything under 100, we want to cut out all the sub frequencies from the reverse bass layer. So I'm cutting here at 88 hertz, but you can play around with where you want to cut your sub off, because quite often this can have quite a big effect on how your bass is going to sound. So play about with your lower cutoff on your EQ. Then I've got an Oxford inflator. This is turned up fairly high and the clip turned on, just to subtly saturate the sound and again give it more of that fatness. And then finally we have the shaper box as well. So this is the curve which I use for this style of reverse bass. Now again, you could obviously play around with the curve. One thing I like to do sometimes is put like an extra spike here, so this kind of thing. Sometimes that can give a bit more of an energetic vibe to the bass, but it's not something I always do. I thought on this one it wasn't that necessary to do that. So altogether, the kick, the sub and the bass. Now, one final thing, I like to put on some reverb onto my reverse bass. I don't like to put a lot on, just a little bit, because I find it brings it to life and gives it a bit of energy and makes it sound a bit more real because it puts it into a space. So the reverb I'm using here is a Pro R. This is just one of the presets that I altered. It's called a Little Room, just altered it a little bit. Now I put on some overdrive. I like to do this sometimes on reverb just to make it feel a little bit fatter, I guess saturate the reverb very slightly. It's not something I always do, but certain sounds I feel that it can work kind of well. And then just an EQ here, just to cut off all the lower frequencies from that reverb, which you don't want. And also a cut on the highs, just to get rid of some of those unnecessary highs there as well. You can really feel the difference when I turn it off. it on, it just brings it to life a little bit. So yeah, that's how we do it. That's one of the methods which I use when I'm just using Serum. There's various other methods you can use to create reverse basses, but this is definitely one of my favorite ones. Yo, so big love to every single person for watching this. Don't forget my sample pack, the Spyro sample pack volume 1. That is out now. The link is in the description, so go cop that . Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. There's gonna be a lot more of this coming very soon.
SPYRO